Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I thought it was time that I just checked in with you and we had a look at these Lightfast tests that I've been conducting over the past few months. If you have watched the earlier two videos I made on this, you will know that I started off by swatching some of my watercolours, not many, just a few. Just some of the ones that I was a little bit uncertain as to whether they were really Lightfast. Sometimes it was due to the pigment, sometimes it was due to other artists telling me that they'd had a problem with them. So I just picked out a few that I was concerned about and I decided to test all of those. As I went on, I think I added a few more. They are all dated, so we'll be able to see how long they've been on the windowsill. What I did with most of my swatches, as you can see here, was I did a swatch and then I cut it in half and put half in a drawer and the other half has been on the windowsill. They've been on the windowsill, as I say, for varying amounts of time because as I went along, I decided to add my inks. That's a really recent addition. I don't have many inks, but I wanted to just see how they would fare. So I don't expect we will see much difference in those, but we're going to have a quick look at them. And also I'm doing a test on the Stabilo Woody 3-in-1 pencil crayon thing. It's one of those really chunky ones. It's not meant to be very Lightfast, but I thought it'd be interesting just to test it. And the other paints I've been testing recently are my collection of Holbein Acryla Gouache. I decided to actually just swatch everything apart from the black and white because I already know they're Lightfast, but I wanted to check all of my colours just to make sure. So I don't expect we will see much change in these either at the moment, but I'm going to keep checking back and I'll do updates as we go along. But I just wanted to show you exactly what I'm testing at the moment. Okay, so let's have a look at the Holbein Acryla Gouache first. This has been in the window since the 30th of July. It's currently the 31st of August as I film this. So it's been in the window for about a month. And honestly, I can't see any difference between this one and the sheet that has been kept in the drawer in the dark. So I wouldn't expect to see any changes at the moment. They all look vibrant and beautiful. When I come to testing them properly or assessing them, whatever you want to call it, I will line them up. I might actually cut them out and we'll be able to see a little bit better. I swatched them like this purely because it was just easier to have them all on one sheet of paper in the window rather than all of these tiny little swatches that are all cut up. I'm finding it quite difficult because during the summer I want to have the window open in here. It gets very hot sometimes, and if there's even a slight gust of wind, they all blow off the windowsill. I've even had some that have been slightly rained on. So this isn't an entirely scientific Lightfast test, but it does give us a really good idea of which paints are Lightfast and which aren't. So yeah, we can't see any difference in these at the moment. So I'll put those out of the way and they can go back in the window in a minute. Okay, so let's have a look at the watercolour swatches. Some of these have been in the window since April, so they've had the summer sun for months. Not that we've had a super sunny summer, but this window does get a lot of light. So I think we would be seeing some changes by now, let's say 4 months on. This was one of my slightly later ones. This has been in the window since the 6th of May. So what's that? Nearly 4 months, isn't it? This is the Daniel Smith Amethyst. Honestly, I don't know whether you can tell on screen, but I can't see any difference. I don't think that's changed at all in nearly 4 months. So that one is looking good. Next up, we have the Daniel Smith Jadeite, because somebody told me they'd had a problem with this. That's been on the windowsill since the 6th of May as well, and I can't see any difference in that. I'm looking really closely, but no, so far that looks good. The next is one of my favourite colours. This is the Daniel Smith Mayan Dark Blue. I bought this and then somebody told me that this is known for fading and I was so disappointed because I loved this blue so much. But hopefully, as you can see, there's been no fading whatsoever. Admittedly, I did apply this fairly thickly, or fairly heavily rather. I think if I were to do my Lightfast tests again, I would make sure there was more of a wash at the bottom so it's more diluted. I'm kind of learning as I'm going on, but as I would use this colour really like this, because I love it in its mass tone, I think it actually looks really good. It's held up well. It's actually been in the window since the 22nd of April, so that's been in the window for over 4 months, and we can't see any changes yet. So the Daniel Smith Moon Glow, this is known for fading because it has a fugitive pigment. The red pigment in it is PR177, and that's known to fade. So I would expect this to be turning a slightly more faded bluish colour, and I think there's possibly a slight change, but do you know it hasn't changed as much as I expected it to? And this one has been in the window since the 22nd of April. So there's not like a major change. This might be slightly lighter on this side. It may be losing some of the red in places, but I mean, it still looks pretty good. But we'll continue with that and we'll see what it looks like in maybe another couple of months. Although now we're going into the autumn, so we won't have as much sunlight or hours of daylight. So this is the Rembrandt Dusk Pink. I really love this one. It's such an interesting paint. And I haven't used it in any of my professional work yet because I bought it and then was a little bit uncertain as to whether it was Lightfast, and actually it's held up really well. This is the window swatch and this is the drawer swatch, and honestly there is no difference there, and it's been in the window since April and is still looking good. So the Daniel Smith Prussian Green is an interesting one because this changed really early on. I think it was only about a week or a week and a half in, and I could already see that it was losing some of this beautiful blue and becoming quite yellow there, but I don't think we've had any further change. So it changed a lot in the first week or two and then stabilised. So if you don't mind the colour just becoming more yellow, I guess it's fine to use this one. It's kind of sad that it's lost this gorgeous blue because I do love a bluish green, but it's the pigment PB27, is known for fading in light, but then sometimes, often, it can regain its colour when you put it back in the dark. It doesn't mean it's the most stable of pigments though, so I would be a little bit concerned about using this for professional work. What I'm going to do at the end of this Lightfast testing is pop this one back in the dark and we'll see whether it regains its lovely blue colour and becomes more like this one again. But yeah, there's been no further fading that I can see. So the Mayan Blue Genuine is another one that I was told fades quite badly, and actually I think I do see a difference here. I don't know whether that's coming through on camera, but the left swatch is slightly paler and also has yellowed slightly. So yeah, there is some change there, and that's after just over 4 months. So I would expect to perhaps see further changes in this one, so we'll keep an eye on that. The Sleeping Beauty Turquoise by Daniel Smith is such a beautiful paint, but there has been a slight change. I would say rather than fading, this side has just yellowed slightly. I don't know how much any of these are showing up on camera, but to my eye I can see it quite clearly. So there hasn't been a dramatic change in 4 months, but it has yellowed. So it'll be interesting to see if it continues to do so. The Rhodonite Genuine, such a gorgeous bright pink when it's first applied. Now I think this one, I may be mistaken, but I don't think it's so much light that affects it as the atmosphere. So it oxidizes, I believe. I think this is what I heard. And you can see that it actually has, I can definitely tell that this swatch is much brighter. This one has faded a little bit and turned slightly yellowish. It did have some of this, I'm not sure what to call it, it's a bit like sediment or something. It did have some of that, I believe, when I first swatched it out, because you can see a little bit on this side too, but I don't know whether it's become more pronounced. I need to look at the older videos to see, but yeah, I can definitely see a difference. It's not as vibrant, it's definitely faded a little bit, and it does look a little bit more brown or a bit more yellow, however you want to put it, but yeah, there's a definite change with that one. If this section looks a little bit different, it's because I realised that I was chatting away and the phone had suddenly stopped recording. I don't know why, but I've looked at the footage I have, and I think we were up to the Holbein Shell Pink, so I'm going to continue on from there. So yes, this is actually looking really quite good. If I hold those two together, it's been on the windowsill for over 4 months, and actually there's been no change whatsoever. If you can see little dots on this side, it's because at one point I had the window open and some raindrops came in. So that's all they are. It's nothing to do with the pigment fading. So yeah, that's looking really good. I thought this might be one that faded quite quickly because it actually contains PO73, which is known for being a bit of a problem pigment. But actually it looks really good, which I'm really pleased about because I love that colour. So we'll continue to keep that on the windowsill and see what happens. But yeah, it's looking good. So the next one is the Daniel Smith Kyanite. There's been no change in that in nearly 4 months. So that's looking good. So here we have the Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolour Rose Doré, and that looks pretty much the same. I would say, if I was pushed, that maybe it looks slightly more yellow on the swatch that's been on the windowsill, but really it's very, very difficult to see any difference there. It's actually holding up really well. So we'll continue to monitor that one as well. I'm going to keep all of these on the windowsill for maybe at least another couple of months, because I think after 6 months we might be able to tell which ones are stable and which ones aren't. I think people recommend that you do a Lightfast test for a year. I might try to find a better way of displaying them if I keep them up there for a year, but we'll think about that at the time. So the final watercolour is this one, and this has the most dramatic fading, and it's not surprising because it's actually a neon pink, and all neons and fluorescents are fugitive and will fade really, really quickly if they're exposed to light. So I bought this purely for sketchbook use, but I was really curious just to see how much it would fade because I'd heard things about neon paints and I wanted to see whether mine would fade to nothing. It has faded to almost nothing down here where it's slightly more of a wash. The actual paint that is left is more of an orangey red, so it's lost all of that pink colour. All of the, I think it's a fluorescent dye, has completely disappeared. And so yeah, after nearly 4 months it looks like that. It started fading really quickly, I think within the first couple of weeks. But yeah, that's super dramatic. So it's interesting to see that, but I was expecting that to happen anyway. So these are all the inks I've been testing. As I say, they've only been on the windowsill for a couple of weeks, so I didn't expect to see any change at the moment, and there isn't any change. They all look exactly the same as they did when they went on the windowsill. We have 2 Wallace and Seymour inks. These came from Choosing Keeping. They're natural inks, one's indigo and one's mahogany. I am expecting to see a change in these, but you know, we will see. Sometimes we can be surprised. The Diatramentis Document ink in black. I'll be interested to see if there's any change in this because they do an archival ink, which is supposed to be fade proof. I've heard good things about this one as well though, so we'll see. I'm hopeful with this one, but we'll find out. And these ones, I don't know how you pronounce this, is it Rora and Klingner? They're sketch inks. We have a black and a grey, and I think they're supposed to be Lightfast, but again, we will find out. So we'll check back on these in like a couple of months and we'll have a look. And finally, we have a couple of swatches of the Stabilo Woody 3-in-1 chunky crayon pencil. We've got one dry swatch, and you can also use it as a watercolour, so you can wet it. So I did a wet swatch as well, so we can see if both of them change or not. But yeah, if I hold those together, I can see definitely it's gone from this more coral pink to a much paler pink. Hopefully the camera is picking that up, but there is a definite change in only 2 months. So that's quite interesting. It did only have 2 stars out of a possible 5 when it came to light fastness, so I did expect it to fade. It's fading to a very pretty pink actually. It's really nice, but yeah, definite fading within a couple of months. And so the wet swatch, let's have a look at that. This is when I watered it down and used it more like watercolour. And yeah, the same thing is happening. It's gone to a much lighter, I say much lighter, slightly lighter pink, but it probably will go to a much lighter pink. But we'll see, you know, it might stop at that, it might continue to fade. It's interesting, sometimes they seem to fade quickly and then kind of stabilise, and other times they continue fading. So that's where we stand with the Lightfast tests on the 31st of August. I'll check back in a couple of months and we'll see whether there have been any changes to the Holbein Acryla Gouache, whether the inks have changed, and whether there have been any developments with the watercolours as well. This has been really interesting for me to do this. I find it fascinating how some colours are really stable and others seem to change very quickly. I'd be interested to know whether any of you are conducting your own Lightfast tests on any materials and whether you've had any surprises as well. So let me know in the comments below. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next video. Take care, everyone.